Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is a pleasure to be, a part of the Maestria Law Day in Brazil, in Belo Horizonte, and I'm very happy to be hosting this talk with our special guest today. We're going to be talking with Daniel Lewis today. Daniel, we go way back. We met quite a few years ago. I'm going to say about 4 or 5 years ago, where when we were looking for ideas, looking for somebody that could guide us, in the process of making Maestria a reality. And we were very lucky and fortunate to cross paths with Daniel Lewis, someone that is we respect a lot, not only as a great person, a person who's very open to helping others. Certainly was a great help, for us, throughout the process, helping us out where we didn't have much answers, where to find. So you were a very important guidance for Maestria. And we really appreciate your time. I know it's super hard to be able to talk to you because you have a super busy agenda. You are all over. I understand you were just back from London, the month before you were in Japan, with a conference too. So thank you so much, Daniel, for being here today. We really appreciate you. Me, Wilson, the founders of Maestria, we really appreciate your time and being here today with us.
It's my pleasure. I'm very happy to be here and happy to be a part of this.
Thank you. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about you, so people in the audience, and if they haven't heard about you, they will know now because you're pretty well known, even in Brazil, a lot of people, have heard great things about you. And that's why there's so much excitement on having you here today. So Daniel Lewis is the CEO for the US version of LegalON Technologies, which is a Japanese-based company. It is the global leader in AI contract review software for legal teams. Previously, Daniel led businesses at Lexis Nexis, including practical guidance, analytical content, and StateNet. He was the CEO and co-founder of Ravel Law, which Lexis Nexis acquired in 2017. He has served as a visiting professor for IE Law School's Masters in Legal Tech program in Madrid, Spain, and from 2012 to 2018 was a fellow at Stanford's Codex Center. Daniel holds a JD from Stanford Law and a BA from Johns Hopkins. Again, thank you for being here, Daniel. We have a lot of questions to go over today, especially in regards to your, fantastic path, in the legal tech field. And I remember back then when me and Whistle, we were talking about this great idea of doing something new in Brazil. Wilson right away came out with a name and he was like, oh, we have this guy doing amazing things. He's in California, he's out of Silicon Valley, and it'll be awesome to just be able to talk to him. And I remember 3 weeks later, we were, in your office in San Francisco discussing the ideas that that came to life today. So thank you again for being here. So Daniel, I would like to start a little bit talking about what motivated you to pursue a career in the legal tech field. I know that you came out of Stanford, you were related, were a fellow at the Codex, program at Stanford as well. And you developed, a program with Harvard University. I remember in 2013, you started the Case Law Access Project with Harvard University. And how did you get interested about that? How did you come across the legal tech world?
Yeah, well, thanks for that very kind introduction, Christian. You honor me with all of that praise. I got interested in legal tech when I was at law school. I didn't come into law school expecting to do anything in legal technology. I came into law school expecting to be a lawyer. But one of the things that surprised me during my studies was how out of date some of the technology we had to use felt compared to what was available on the rest of the internet. And that got me interested, plain and simple. So I started speaking with professors in the computer science department at Stanford, talking with classmates, talking with law firms to understand whether I was alone and whether other people were struggling with the technology and whether there were opportunities to bring some of the advances that we were seeing everywhere else in machine learning and data visualization and search technology into legal technology to make it better. And so it was this challenge that essentially got me very interested, and I started spending nights and weekends on it. And that turned into the ideas behind Ravel Law, which was a company that I was then able to start as I graduated, and I've been in legal technology ever since.
That's great. And I remember when we first met, we were talking about the name Ravel. We're explaining exactly what was the meaning behind it. Tell me a little bit about the name, and tell me a little bit about what really motivated you to create the tools that we found in Ravel Law.
Yeah, so what we tried to build with Ravel, my co-founder and the team that we created, was to really improve the case law research process and to create ways for lawyers to make more data-driven decisions about what was important and how to craft winning arguments. So the motivation was taking what we felt was out-of-date technology and building a real step change, something that could be 10 times better in helping people research faster and more confidently and to make better decisions along the way. And the name Ravel means the same thing as unravel. And in the US, case law decisions are all interconnected, right? They cite to each other. It's a common law system. And so we liked this visual notion of unraveling the law to help people understand it.
Great. Awesome. So, Daniel, one of the things that we notice in your career so far is that you have had a broad exposure to international markets. You not only have been exposed to those markets, but you have really influenced a lot of the markets that we see nowadays, especially in regards to the type of tools that we're trying to promote in Brazil as well. So just to give a little background for our audience, you were vice president of product management at Lexis Nexis, a company that was serving the US, the UK, and Canada. On LegalON, it is a Japanese-based company, and now you are the CEO for the United States. And on that context, if you put into perspective Ravel and Lexis Nexis, at some point you were serving more than 100,000 attorneys, in all of those countries. So tell us a little bit about what's the primary concerns that you see on lawyers in adapting to new technology, if you consider all those markets that you've been involved with?
Yeah, I think some of the concerns are very shared across markets, right? One of those is change worth it? Is change worth it in terms of the cost of buying something new, the time it takes to learn something new or to manage a change process for a team, the familiarity of doing something in a new way when you're used to doing it an old way. So that's always one of the top questions. And I don't think that's hugely unique to law. That's a question that folks in a lot of spaces share. Another kind of question that folks ask themselves in the legal space is this: does this thing that I'm considering buying, does it give me something new that I've never had before? Information or a technology capability, or does it improve something that I already have, right? Do I already have a piece of software and maybe it does an okay job, but this thing is giving me something that is a bit better? And so that's a dynamic that a lot of folks are trying to grapple with. And I think I've found generally it can be easier to sell something in when it's entirely new, right? When it's something that the user has never had the ability to do before, never had the information available to them, versus trying to get them to change from something that may be good enough to something that could be better. And then I think the last thing, which is perhaps most specific to legal, is this product trustworthy? Is it reliable? Because good enough in some parts of technology can be a subjective question. If you're getting help with your marketing technology, it might be subjectively good, but you don't have an objective way of knowing that it's 100% accurate, And so in law, some pieces of technology, not all pieces of legal technology, but some pieces of legal technology, they need to actually be accurate within the law's constraints. They either need to give you accurate legal guidance, they need to reflect the latest laws, that sort of thing. And so the floor for what good enough is sometimes means you need to actually be demonstrably sort of true and accurate in a legal sense. And that's something that folks certainly grapple with as well as they consider new technology.
What are the common trends you see in the legal software acceptance? If you compare all the countries you've been exposed to, Japan, US, Canada, UK? Do you have a country where technology is more accepted? I think one of the discussions we had before was how the US is so advanced in little niches regards to different tools. Like it's very rare to see one software that will solve all the problems and all the needs of a lawyer's, daily perspective in the work field. But how do you see that? Which countries present, the cutting edge in technology, in trends, in acceptance?
Yeah, so to caveat that answer, I've got the most experience in the U.S. and Canada, UK, and some exposure in Japan, and each has different characteristics. Actually, U.S. and Canada are probably most similar simply because they're both North America. There's a lot of commonality between the companies and the law firms that are doing business here in these markets. But some of the differences are meaningful, I think. So in the U.S., for example, obviously it's sort of the biggest legal market in the world, so it has the biggest set of companies competing to offer new products. It's probably got the most niche offerings, right? Because it's a market that's big enough to support multiple companies that are trying to do very specific things. So just the array of companies operating in the space and the diversity of the technology that's being created, I think sets the US apart. But other things do as well. So in the US, for example, in corporate legal practice, there's been the creation over the last 10 years or so of the legal operations team, the legal operations function, which is embedded within a corporate legal team, but really designed to enhance the efficiency and the operations of that team by helping them assess technology, implement technology, use metrics to make decisions, use metrics to measure their workloads, to demonstrate ROI, that sort of thing. And that functional creation is pretty new, and you don't see it to as big of an extent at all in the UK or in Japan, for that matter, these two other very large legal service markets. So that's one of the unique aspects of the US, this sort of legal ops function in corporate teams. In the UK, by contrast, you don't have necessarily these legal ops teams, but on the other hand, you have big law firms that are operating in a very competitive market, a very competitive global market. And so oftentimes it seems like the UK large law firms are some of the fastest moving law firms in the world, faster than some of their US counterparts. And so some companies find their first success selling into large law firms in the UK because those firms are leaning into adopting technology or new products faster than anybody else. Japan has a different setup as well. So in Japan, lawyers are actually quite rare. It's very hard to become a lawyer. It's hard to become a lawyer in every place, but in Japan, I think it can be particularly hard. And so they, in some ways, operate quite traditionally still. It's one of the ways that is still fairly traditional is in something like case law research, where a lot of their resources are still fairly print-based and not digital. So that's kind of an anomaly globally, I'd say. The US is very digital focused on things like case law research. On the other hand, Japan has moved very quickly on adopting tools like AI for contract review, which is where LegalON, my company, got its start in Japan and has found success serving thousands of companies with AI to help them do contract reviews faster, moving way more quickly than some other markets that we've seen globally. So yeah, I think it's interesting to see each of these markets has places where they move more quickly and places where they don't move quite as quickly as relative to the others.
Yeah, it was very interesting for us to compare the kind of reality that we had in Brazil compared to the United States, and how we could learn from the experience of that great advantage time-wise that the U.S. has basically of implementing different tools, different technologies, and how we can predictably see what's going to happen with the market once you implement those tools. So that was great value, all the talks that we had, all the times that we spent together discussing, the product designs that we were implementing at Maestria. One of the most important things that me and Wilson specifically, we appreciated during the process of making Maestria a reality is that the importance of having someone who is a lawyer, being implementing new technologies, being able to cross-train, to communicate with a technology team, which is extremely rare. I know that in your case, not only you come out of a university related to the Silicon Valley, but I know that you had a roommate who was also the founder, of the first company, Ravel. And but how important do you think that relationship is? Because it's very easy for you to be taken by technology and to build something that looks amazing, something that is really off the charts in regards to technology. But how do you make it meaningful to your daily routine as a lawyer, and how that helped you as a lawyer, design all of those tools?
Yeah, I think some of the advantages of having lawyers involved in the creation of legal technology are obvious, right? One is that they know the problems firsthand, or they can know the problems. Legal technology is so big that it's not necessarily the case that you're going to know every piece of practice, but you have a good chance of really understanding the problems firsthand. And when you understand the problem firsthand, it makes it a lot easier to know when you've solved it, right? Because you can then say, oh yeah, this product is working really well in solving this thing that I had as a problem. If you're just an engineer approaching this, you can learn a lot about law, but you can have some challenges in knowing, are we really solving this in the very nitty-gritty specific way that a lawyer needs it to be solved? So that clearly that's one of the obvious advantages. A second piece that's an advantage, though, is I think lawyers have credibility when they go out and speak with other lawyers who are prospective customers. And they have credibility because they are part of that legal community. They have gone through the same training. They've done the similar kind of work. And so a prospective customer can say, I can trust you a bit more than somebody who hasn't been a lawyer because you know the problems that I'm facing. And if you're talking about a solution to those, I know that you are potentially vouching for that. You've seen the problem and you've seen it being solved yourself. I think the last piece, which is certainly an advantage, is some products rely on having legal knowledge incorporated in them directly. They wouldn't work without that sort of legal knowledge. And my company, for example, LegalON, is one of those types of companies where to do AI contract review, we have a team of lawyers on staff who define what a good contract review looks like. So they need to have that knowledge of, here's how I would review an NDA or a SaaS agreement or a purchase agreement. We need that legal knowledge incorporated that then we can turn into software. And if you don't have that, you can't do it. So certain products do require having that legal knowledge really baked into it in a way that you can't replicate. So those to me are certainly three areas where it's very clear that having lawyers involved in the process are big advantages.
Very interesting. One of the things that we were discussing with Wilson, when we decided to invite you to interview here, is that we saw you go into market with an amazing company that was offering a unique solution for real problems of the daily routine of a lawyer. So you firsthand became an entrepreneur, brought this company, but it's been a few years that you've been in market, and right now we understand really what's the pain of the consumer, what's the challenge in adopting the new technology. And I took the time to look at LegalON website, and the first page, it just struck me really well, how you guys are so well refined in that sense, because, first of all, the principles that are discussed on LegalON is based on trust. So, you can get your standards configurable to your business. You also mentioned that you need more time for important tasks. This is always a fear that we see a lot in the market in Brazil, of a lawyer being replaced by technology, but that's not the case. And how do you automate the things that can be automated so you have more time to dedicate to what's really important about your strategy as a lawyer, right? The things that only a lawyer can do. And the other point that I saw is the slogan, start right away. So it's that there's no setup that needs to be taking place. There's no training required. So that goes back a lot to UX, right? So in your perspective, throughout the years that you've been having this amazing exposure to the market, what are the biggest challenges for legal tech companies when creating a new product?
Having lawyers involved in that process, I think when it comes to areas like design thinking or user experience or even marketing, it can be very helpful. Again, it goes back to you have some firsthand experience solving the problem. But that said, design thinking as a practice and really listening to your users and knowing that you might not get it right the first time, so you need to continue iterating and refining, that doesn't necessarily come naturally to everybody. And it doesn't necessarily come naturally to lawyers who might be used to doing all of their refinement and drafting and then putting out a perfect work product. So iterative development can be hard for people who are used to sharing perfect work product. But I think lawyers can definitely be trained into that practice. And lawyers can be trained into doing things like marketing as well. But again, there are some differences between how lawyers speak and how marketers speak, right? Lawyers are often going to be very precise, maybe very conservative in how they make a claim, whereas marketing sometimes requires making claims that stand out in a more aggressive way than a lawyer might naturally feel comfortable speaking in. So there are differences there that require some mind shift and some retraining. And within any company, right, you have these different skill sets of marketing and sales and design. And it's not the case that lawyers are naturally suited to do all of those jobs, that each one has kind of specialized career tracks and ladders and skills that need developed. But I think legal technology really excels when it brings teams together, right? When they have those diverse skills, and a company can sort of get the best out of really capable people in each of those areas, and then create a product, clearly present it to customers so that customers know how it's going to work, know that it's going to work right for them on day one, and have a team that will support them really well as they go through their own sort of journey, learning it and executing on their own change.
So Daniel, you're an international reference for the legal tech world. I was looking back at your biography and I saw that you guys were the inventors of legal analytics, which is super amazing. Just a privilege to be able to talk to you and to understand, how this amazing path took place in your career. But one thing that we always think ahead, right? And we discuss that every time that we met before. Like, how do you see the future of law? I see that you described today how law is done very traditionally in Japan. You were explaining me how these global law firms, based in England, are able to, quickly adapt to the reality. But do you see anything as a global factor related to where the law can go? In Brazil, particularly, we have a very slow machine related to the process. I mean, there's, people spend years sometimes, related to their processes, waiting for answers, waiting for lawyers to act. I mean, there's a lot of problems to be solved. And I know that answer is not the same compared to different countries. But where do you see law, the law practice in the next few years? At a level of a country of the United States where, it's been exposed already to a lot of technology, and maybe in a country like Brazil, which, is going through this huge, change in regards to the adaptation to new technology trends. Where do you see that happening? What's the improvement you see in those type of markets?
Yeah, the answer to that question, I think, is different today than it would have been even just a year ago. The launch of GPT and being able to fully explore the capabilities of generative AI today are so transformative, I think, that they lead to several things that are somewhat unexpectedly fast, potentially, in where we thought legal practice could go over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think GPT is being recognized globally in all of the markets that I'm familiar with for what it presents as an opportunity to work and improve processes within law. because law is so text-centric, so language-centric, and GPT and Gen AI are really designed to work well with language. But I think it's now actually become, in something like contract review, for example, very hard to imagine a world 5 years from now where lawyers are reviewing contracts without the support of AI to help them spot issues and suggest changes. I wouldn't have said that a year ago. I think it was happening, but that future has really accelerated. And the third thing that I am seeing across geographies, but especially in the US and the UK, is an increasingly common mentality and an acceptance and a belief in standardizing and making routine the routine work, and then focusing on the boutique work and separating that out. So this recognition that there is a layer of routine legal work that is something like a managed service that should be handled in a different way with different processes than you would potentially handle more boutique, custom, one-off work. And I think that's an increasing trend that both reflects the drive for efficiency that companies and consumers of legal are demanding, but also reflects kind of an increasing ability for technology and process to improve some of the legal work and automate it away, to let lawyers focus on things that lawyers can only do and can do best.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel, for your time. It's been amazing, to be talking to you for these minutes. It's been so awesome to see your career, and I'm very excited, to see what's going to come. I really want to, make an invitation for you here. We want the next Maestria Law Day that you actually come to Brazil, spend some time with us. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that will be super excited to meet you there. And it's just really awesome to be able to share your knowledge, your experience, your vision for the practice of law in the future with our spectators in Brazil. I think it's been of extreme value to have you here today, and I couldn't be happier and more proud of us at Maestria to be able to count on someone like you to help us in the process of becoming Maestria. Thank you so much, Daniel. I'll let you finish up with your own words, but thank you so much for being here today, and we really appreciate you.
Thanks, Christian. It's been my pleasure, and wishing you all the very best of luck.